In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make these very adorable little shroom fairies. They can be made into tree ornaments. You can hang them off your rear view mirror. You can turn them into keychains. They're totally cute and completely versatile. So let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Weird siblings. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me provide you with weekly tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns, and lacy motifs. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. For today's tutorial, I am going to use 5 different threads or colors of threads. So the first one's going to be the pistachio. Next one's going to be jalapeno. This light blue is called clarity. This sort of tealish blue dark is called kenai. And then natural. Now all of these threads come from the same company. They come from Knit Picks. It's a Knit Picks brand. And the name of the thread is Curio. It's a number 10. And this is a little different than what you might get with Aunt Lydia's brand. This particular cotton thread actually has quite a drape. It's softer and it has more of a drape. So when making up these little mushroom guys, this works out beautifully. Also, a few other things that you might like to have: a pair of scissors, any kind of a tool for stuffing. I will be using a number 2 or a 1.5 millimeter steel crochet hook. Of course, stuffing. And then also going to have this invisible nylon thread. I am using this cording I happen to have on hand, and this is what I'm going to use to hang my mushroom with. Now this of course is optional. You can use whatever. So if you're making this into a keychain, use those particular findings or pieces that you might need in order to turn it into a keychain. If you're turning it into a tree decoration, then use whatever you would normally use as a hanger to hang it from a tree. These are all optionals. This is what I happen to have on hand, so this is what I am going to use. Also, I will be using these 4 millimeter beads. They're little glass beads that have this kind of pearl coating over them. You can certainly use whatever color beads you would like to use. But I am using these ones, and they're 4 millimeter. I am also using safety eyes. You can use a 5 or 6 millimeter safety eye. This one is approximately a 5 millimeter. So I'm going to be using that. Now I also have 3 different size needles. So I have quite a large yarn needle, which will help me with the cording for my hanger. I have my beading needle, which I will be using with my invisible thread. And then I have my regular tapestry needle for my standard sewing that I'll need to do in order to piece my mushrooms together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with creating the cap of the mushroom. And for this one, I want to double up on my thread. So I'm going to choose my darkest color and then my next darkest color. And I'm going to start with a magic ring. And then I'm going to single crochet 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up my ring. And this particular project, I'm going to work in a spiral. And so you're going to want either a stitch marker or a piece of contrasting thread. So I'm going to use a piece of contrasting thread. I'm going to put it right here before I start my round 2. And this contrasting thread, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this idea, is actually going to be in lieu of a stitch marker. So starting for round 2, I'm going to make increase. So in the next stitch and each stitch after this, I'm going to single crochet 2 single crochets in each stitch. So I will finish round 2 with a total of 12 stitches. Now once round 2 is completed, I'm going to move my stitch marker over and I'm going to begin round 3. And then for round 3, I'm going to single crochet and increase, single crochet and increase. So basically I'm going to do the pattern of a single crochet and an increase 6 times, and that will leave me with 18 stitches in my round. So again, a single crochet and then an increase. Now I'm going to do this 4 more times. Now that I've completed round 3, I'm going to move on to round 4, and you can see I just moved my stitch marker back in front to indicate the next round of my stitch. For round 4, the pattern is going to be single crochet twice and then an increase. So that would be 1 single crochet and then a single crochet in the next stitch, and then an increase in the stitch after that. And I'm going to repeat that pattern a total of 6 times. So my round will have a total of 24 stitches at the completion of round 4. So again, single crochet, and then an increase. I'm going to do this 4 more times. Next, we're going to begin round 5. And for round 5, I've moved my stitch marker. And this time it's going to be single crochet 3 times and then an increase. So single crochet once, a single crochet in the next stitch, and then a single crochet in that third stitch. And then in the next stitch over is going to be the increase. So 2 single crochets in a single stitch. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times. So a total of 6 times again for round 5. And that should leave us with a count of 30 stitches when round 5 is completed. Next, moving on to round 6. And this will be the last round in this color combination. And for this round, I'm going to single crochet 4 and then increase. And I'm going to follow that pattern 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then an increase. And when I've finished round 6, I should have a count of 36 stitches for my round. So now once I've completed round 6, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the lightest thread out of the combination of threads that I'm using, and I'm going to trim it or cut it off, but I'm going to leave about, I don't know, maybe 3 inches of thread there. And then I'm going to replace that thread with the next lightest thread that I'm going to be using for this color combination. And that is going to be this pistachio color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get that set up. Now, once I'm ready, I'm just going to simply overlap that thread over the other two threads so you can see that little last bit of thread that I have from my lighter green color, from my jalapeno color of green. And the darker color, or this Kenai bluish green color, this is the color I'm going to continue to use through the duration of the cap, even through the color changes. So I'm going to begin round 7. And for round 7, I'm going to single crochet 5, and then I'm going to increase. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an increase. I'm going to repeat this pattern a total of 6 times, and I will end up with a count of 42 when I've completed round 7. And once I've completed my round 7, I should have something that looks similar to this. You can see the color change. And then I'm going to move on to round 8. And for round 8, I'm going to single crochet 6, and then I'm going to increase. And that'll leave me with an end count of 48 stitches for this round 8. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then an increase. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times. Next, for round 9, I'm going to single crochet 7 and then increase, and that will leave me with an end count of 54 stitches when I complete round 9. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, plus an increase. And I'll do this 5 more times. So now that I've completed my 9 rows, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change colors one more time. Again, I'm going to cut to where I have about 3 inches of thread left. And then I'm going to switch over to my next lightest color. And that last color for me is going to be the Clarity Blue. So just like before, I'm going to take that blue and I'm just going to lay it over with the other colors for the color change. And then for round 10, I'm going to single crochet 8, and then I'm going to increase. And that'll give me a total of 60 count for my round 10. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the increase. I'm going to repeat that pattern 5 more times. Next, once you've completed round 10, you're going to have 2 more rounds to do. So rounds 11 and 12 are simply going to be single crochets in each stitch. So for each round, 11, and 12. You're going to end with a total count of 60 stitches. So now that I've completed all 12 rounds, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to remove my stitch marker, set that aside. And then I'm going to just do a basic slip stitch into the next stitch. And then I'm going to cut my 8 or 12 inches of thread for sewing. I'm going to just go ahead and pull that thread through. And the cap will look something like this. I'm going to thread my hanger through and secure that. And then I'm going to use my invisible thread and my bead needle and my beads. And then I'm just going to sew my beads in place. I'm just going to decide where I think the bead ought to go, and I'm going to go ahead and sew it right there. And I'll meet you right back here when I've finished doing that. So through the magic of video, I'll see you in about, a second. Now, once you've finished sewing on your beads and attaching your hanger, you should have something that looks like this, the cap of your mushroom. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and I'm going to begin on the body of the mushroom, or rather the stem. This time I'm going to use the natural colored thread and just a single strand. Then I'm going to make a magic ring. And like before, I'm going to single crochet 6 for round 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Again, still going to work in a spiral. And then if you need to use a stitch marker, by all means. At this point, I am going to not feel like I need a stitch marker, but you may feel like you need a stitch marker to keep track of your count. Now, the next round, which is round 2, and of course, I'm still going to work in a spiral, I'm going to go forward with an increase in each stitch. So when we're finished with round 2, we will have a total count of 12. Now, moving on to round 3, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet and then an increase. That particular pattern, I'm going to do that, of course, 6 times. So that'll be the single crochet and then the increase. And when I've completed round 3, I will have a total of 18 stitches in this round. Next, for round 4, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet 2 times, and then I'm going to do an increase. So 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets. And then in that next stitch over, an increase. I'm going to do that 5 more times, leaving me with having followed that pattern a total of 6 times. And that will leave me at a count of 24 stitches for round 4. So now once I've completed my first 4 rounds, I should have 24 stitches in my round. And then I'm going to move on to rounds 5, 6, and 7. And each one of those next 3 rounds is going to have a total count of 24 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do rounds 5, 6, and 7, and I'll meet you right back here. Now, once I have the first 7 rounds completed, and I have 24 stitches in my round, I'm going to move on to round 8. And for round 8, I'm going to single crochet 2, and then I'm going to decrease. And I'm going to do that 6 times, single crochet 2, and then I'm going to decrease. And I'll show you how I decrease. So have 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and then the decrease. So for the decrease, I'm going to insert my hook into the front loop of the next stitch. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that yarn through. So I have 2 loops on my hook. Then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the front loop of the next stitch. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull that yarn through. I'm going to yarn over again and I'm going to pull that yarn through all 3 of those loops. So now I've created a single stitch from 2. I've decreased. I'm going to do that 5 more times. So I'm going to single crochet twice and then I'm going to decrease. So 1, 2, and then my decrease. So now I'm going to do that pattern 4 more times. When I've completed round 8, I'm going to have 18 stitches on my round. Now that I've completed round 8 and I have 18 stitches in my round, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet in each stitch for the next 4 rounds. So for rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12, I'm simply going to single crochet. So each one of those rounds will end up with a total of 18 stitches. Next, for round 13, I'm going to single crochet and then decrease, single crochet and then decrease. And that will leave me with a count of 12 stitches for my round. So single crochet and then a decrease. A single crochet and then a decrease. I'm going to do that 4 more times in this round. Now for rounds 14, 15, and 16, I'm simply going to single crochet. So that will give me a count of 12 stitches for each round. And when I've finished doing those next 3 rounds, it's a good time to get a little stuffing in the bottom of the stem. So now that I've completed round 16 and I have 12 stitches in my round and I've stuffed my stem, the body of my mushroom, I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet 12 front loop only. I'm going to put a single crochet in each of the front loops, going all the way around for round 17. Now, when I've completed that, I'm going to turn my work. So we're going to start working in the opposite direction as we have been. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 1. Then I'm going to double crochet in each stitch. So the first double crochet I'm going to do is going to be in this very same stitch as the chain 1. So that gives me 2, 3, 4. So far I have double crocheted 12. So a double crochet in each of those 12 stitches. Now I've come all the way back around and I have this one little stitch right here that sits kind of in between. It's actually the stitch from the previous row. Go ahead and then double crochet 2 double crochets right into that single stitch. And that will be the completion of round 18. That'll leave you with 14 stitches for this round. Next, I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to join right there into that first chain 2. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to chain 2 again, 1 and 2. And then right here in this very next stitch, into that first double crochet from the previous row, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place a double crochet, and then I'm going to place a treble crochet in that same stitch, and then I'm going to place one more double crochet. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet. Now in the very next stitch from there, I'm going to place a double crochet, a treble crochet in that same stitch, and then a double crochet in that same stitch again. And then in the very next stitch after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet. I'm going to continue that all the way around. So in the next stitch is going to be a double crochet plus a treble crochet plus a double crochet, all in the same stitch. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a half double crochet. And then one more time in the next stitch after that, as I continue the pattern, going to be a double crochet plus a treble crochet plus a double crochet, all in the same stitch. And then in the stitch after that, a half double crochet. And then continue that all the way around until I've completed round 19. And then after I've completed my last half double crochet for round 19, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join right there into that very second chain. And then I'm going to fasten off my work, and the stem and body of my mushroom will then be completed, and I will set this piece aside and we'll get started on the actual head or the underneath part of the cap. So next I'm going to work on the head or the under part of the cap, and this is the part where the eyes are going to be attached to as well. So for this part of our mushroom, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now in the second chain from the hook, beginning my first row, I'm going to single crochet. And then I'm going to single crochet in each of the next 9 single crochets all the way down. So now that I have a total of 10 single crochets, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. And then for round 2 and here on in, I'm going to work back loops only. And in that very first single crochet, in the back loop only, I'm going to make another single crochet. And then I'm going to do that with the next 9 stitches. Single crochet in each single crochet, back loop only. And so when I've done my 10 single crochets, back loop only, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. So now I've got 2 rows completed. I'm going to continue exactly this same way for a total of 36 rows. So once I've turned my work in that very first single crochet, back loop only, I'm going to begin it all over again. For those of you who don't know, basically this is a single crochet ribbed stitch. Okay, so now I have 3 rows completed. I've got 33 more rows to go, and I will meet you right back here when I've done that. Now, once you have 36 rows completed, go ahead and fasten off your work and give yourself, again, a nice long tail to sew with. And at this point, what I do is I go ahead and I thread my needle, and then I just run my needle just here along the very bottom edge of this piece of ribbing. And what you're going to do is you're going to end up gathering these pieces together, or rather this piece together. So you can kind of see. Next, I'm going to take the stem that's already been completed, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm simply going to fit this around. I'll just line everything up to the back seams. So just line up this gathered piece just to where it fits the opening of the stem. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of whip stitch it right in here into this corner. So I'll get these 2 pieces together. And I think you can see how everything is just lined up. So I'll just hold my piece just like this to where the ribbed piece of the material just lays right over the stem part and where the 2 fabrics sit next to each other. And then there I'm just going to simply whip stitch it all the way back around. Whip stitch the 2 pieces together just there on their edges. Now, once I've made my way all the way around, I'm going to take the extra thread that I have, and then I'm going to sew these 2 flaps together, just on either side of the ribbing material. So I'm just going to overlap it by a row on either end. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do a nice little tight running stitch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow the stitches that are already there so that it just kind of hides things a little bit. Okay, so now you have something that looks like a little bit of a cup. And now I'm going to put in my eyes. Now you're going to have to decide about where you think your eyes look best. And I think that looks about good right there. So I'm good with that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish putting in my eyes. Now, whatever thread I might have left over after sewing, the back seam, I'm just going to sit right here into the head, and it'll just become part of the filling. So next, I'm going to sit this body part aside, and we're going to go back to the cap. Again, I'm going to thread the leftover yarn I have from the cap. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I am actually going to, in the back loops, right there, in that back loop only of the stitch, I'm going to, every couple of stitches, I'm going to bring in my needle, and I'm going to just kind of whip stitch in there. And what that's going to do is that's going to help gather the bottom of my cap a little bit. So now we can start getting some shape to our cap, which will help it fit nicely on the head of our stalk or our mushroom. So now you can see that I've done a little gathering with that. And this is where you start playing a little bit in order to get it to fit right. So you can see at this point, this is where I'm going to sew the head and the cap on, just like so. So I'm going to start to do is, again, I'm going to come back here to the back seam. And I'm going to sit this inside one piece to the other. And I'm going to see that everything fits pretty well. It's about the same width and circumference as the inner piece with the outer piece. And then I'm going to begin to whip stitch them together. I'm still staying within the back loop of the outside cap. Now you might want to pin this together if you feel better doing that. If not, or either way, you're still going to kind of, mess with it and fiddle with it a little bit as you continue to make sure that everything lines up the way you want it to. And of course, you're going to stay right within a stitch's width of each piece of fabric. So now the piece should look something like this. And then I have this little hole in the back. And this is where I'm going to start stuffing. Now, the way I do it is that I actually pay attention to the cap. So, like, I try to stuff a little bit into the actual cap itself and try to get that stuffing up underneath the lip, this part right here. And that's the first thing I try to do with this. And then once I feel like I've got the cap filled the way I want it, then I will gently stuff the head, but I don't want to stuff it too much, just a little bit. And you can see the head's not stuffed too much. The cap is mostly what I have stuffed. And then I'm going to finish sewing this on. And then I'll show you what I do next. And if you're good with your mushroom at this point, then this is where all you need to do is stop and you're good. Otherwise, if you want a little more definition, or if you feel like your mushroom needs a little more shaping, go ahead and break out your invisible thread again and just start, sewing like you would shape any other kind of amigurumi. And just have fun with this and shape it to the way you think it looks best. So I just quickly like to remind you to hit the subscribe button if you already haven't done that. Always like the video. That really helps me out with the algorithm. And make a comment if you feel so so called to do so. Otherwise, I'd just like to remind you to have a fantastic day and to remember to always weave your own weird. Bye bye now.